"You'll always be in your sister's shadow," Mom yelled. Then my sister became my personal assistant. My name is Cordelia. I'm 34, and I live in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado. This is the story of how my own mom told me I'd always live in my sister's shadow, until my sister ended up working for me. Growing up, I was what you might call the invisible child. While my younger sister Valentina was everything my mother Diane considered perfect, blonde, bubbly, and blessed with what she called natural charm, I was the awkward brunette with my nose always buried in a book. Val was the one who got modeling offers at the mall, who had boys calling the house constantly, who could walk into any room and command attention effortlessly. I remember being 12 years old, hunched over my desk working on a science fair project about renewable energy. I'd spent weeks researching, building prototypes, testing different solar panel configurations. I was so excited to show my mom my work, certain that this time, she'd see how hard I'd worked, how smart I was. "Mom, look. I think I figured out how to make solar panels 15% more efficient using—" "That's nice, honey," she said, without even glancing up from painting Val's nails a perfect shade of coral pink. "Val, you're going to look absolutely stunning at the spring dance. Did I tell you Mrs. Patterson said you should consider entering the Miss Teen Colorado pageant?" My sister preened in the attention while I stood there holding my project, feeling like I might as well have been invisible. This was the pattern of my entire childhood. Me achieving, creating, excelling, and my mother's eyes always fixed on Val's latest social triumph. The comments started early and never stopped. "Why can't you be more like your sister? Val just has that special something. Cordelia's fine, but Val, now she's got star quality." I heard variations of these phrases so often they became the soundtrack to my adolescence. High school was particularly brutal. I graduated valedictorian, got accepted to MIT with a full scholarship, won 3 different academic competitions, and, at my graduation party, my mother spent the entire evening talking about how Val had been crowned homecoming queen and was dating the quarterback. "Isn't it wonderful how different my girls are?" she'd tell anyone who'd listen. "Cordelia's the studious one. But Val, she's got that natural magnetism. She's going to do something really special with her life." The breaking point came when I was 22, fresh out of college with my engineering degree and a job offer from a major tech company in Silicon Valley. I was so proud, so ready to finally prove that I was worth celebrating. I called home, practically vibrating with excitement. "Mom, I got the job. Google wants me to join their renewable energy division. The salary is incredible, and they're even helping with relocation costs. Can you believe it? Your daughter is going to be working at Google." There was a pause, then my mother's voice, flat and unimpressed. "That's good for you, dear. Listen, I have to go. Val just got offered a modeling contract with a Denver agency. We're meeting with her agent tonight to discuss her portfolio shoot." I felt like I'd been slapped. Here I was, about to embark on what most people would consider a dream career, and she couldn't spare 5 minutes to celebrate with me because her precious Val was taking headshots. But the moment that changed everything, the moment that seared into my memory forever, happened 2 years later at Val's 22nd birthday party. By then, I was thriving at Google, working on groundbreaking sustainable technology projects, making more money than most people see in a lifetime. But when I came home for Val's party, it was like I was still that invisible 12-year-old. The party was elaborate, naturally. My mother had rented out the country club, hired a photographer, invited what seemed like half the city. Val was in her element, floating around in a designer dress, accepting congratulations on her latest modeling gig, a campaign for a local car dealership. I tried to join conversations, to share some of the exciting projects I was working on, but every time I opened my mouth, the focus somehow shifted back to Val. When I mentioned that my team had just secured a patent that could revolutionize solar energy storage, my Aunt Carol nodded politely and immediately turned to gush about Val's photo shoot. The final straw came when my mother stood up to give a toast. She went on and on about Val's beauty, her popularity, her bright future in modeling. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "And of course, we're proud of Cordelia too. She's doing well at her little computer job." My little computer job. I was developing technology that could literally help save the planet, and she called it my little computer job. But what happened next is what I'll never forget. Val, basking in all the attention, raised her champagne glass and said with a giggle, "Don't worry, Cordy. Not everyone can be the star of the family. Someone has to be the smart one in the background." The room laughed. My own sister had just publicly relegated me to the background, and everyone thought it was charming. That's when my mother chimed in, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. "Oh, Cordelia knows her place. You'll always be in your sister's shadow, sweetheart. Some people are just born to shine, and others are born to watch. That's just how it is." The room went silent. Even Val looked a little uncomfortable. But my mother just smiled that cold, dismissive smile I knew so well, and took another sip of her wine. I set down my champagne glass, walked to my car, and drove back to California that same night. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't make excuses. I just left. And that's when I decided I was done trying to prove myself to them. I was going to prove myself to the world. I threw myself into my work with a fury I'd never felt before. Those words, "You'll always be in your sister's shadow," became fuel for a fire that burned hotter than anything I'd ever experienced. I worked 18-hour days, weekends, holidays. I studied market trends, taught myself business strategy, networked like my life depended on it. Within a year, I'd developed a revolutionary battery storage system that could integrate seamlessly with existing solar installations. It was elegant, efficient, and exactly what the renewable energy market had been waiting for. Instead of trying to climb the corporate ladder at Google, I did something that terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. I quit my job and started my own company. EcoVolt Solutions began in my cramped Silicon Valley apartment with nothing but my savings, my patent, and an unshakable determination to succeed. The first year was brutal. I ate ramen noodles and worked by lamplight to save on electricity. I pitched to investor after investor, hearing no more times than I could count. But slowly, painfully, beautifully, it started to work. My first major contract came from a solar installation company in Arizona, then another in Nevada. Word spread about this new battery system that was outperforming everything else on the market. Tech blogs started writing about EcoVolt. Industry magazines wanted interviews. By year 3, we had offices in 5 states and a team of 30 employees. By year 5, we were the fastest-growing renewable energy company in the Southwest. Major corporations were licensing our technology. We went public, and the IPO made headlines in Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. I was featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine as the woman revolutionizing clean energy. Tesla wanted to partner with us. The governor of California invited me to speak at the state's first Climate Innovation Summit. And through all of this, the success, the recognition, the financial freedom I'd only dreamed of, my family was notably silent. No congratulations calls, no proud social media posts, nothing. I found out why when I hired a private investigator to do some background research for a potential business partnership. The report included information about my family, and what I learned broke my heart and made me angrier than I'd ever been. While I was building my empire, Val's modeling career had crashed spectacularly. Turns out, the natural charm my mother had been so proud of didn't translate into professional success. Val had been dropped by her agency after showing up late to shoots, making demands, and generally behaving like the entitled princess she'd been raised to be. She'd burned through a series of boyfriends, all of whom eventually got tired of supporting, someone who contributed nothing but drama to the relationship. She'd moved back in with my mother, who was struggling financially after my father's death 2 years earlier, something no one had bothered to tell me about. But here's the part that really got to me. According to the report, my mother had been telling people that I was doing fine, but that I'd never really amounted to much. She was still, even in the face of my obvious success, diminishing my achievements to anyone who would listen. That's when opportunity knocked in the most ironic way possible. My assistant had just quit to move across the country with her husband, and I desperately needed someone to help manage my increasingly complex schedule. I needed someone to handle travel arrangements, coordinate with my team, manage my calendar, and basically ensure that my life ran smoothly so I could focus on running my company. That's when I got a call from my mother. The first time she'd called me in 3 years. "Cordelia, honey, I know we haven't talked much lately, but I was wondering if you might be able to help your sister out. She's going through a tough time, and she really needs a job. I know you work for some tech company. Maybe you could put in a good word for her?" I almost laughed out loud. Some tech company. I owned the company, but I didn't correct her. "What kind of work is Val looking for?" I asked, keeping my voice carefully neutral. "Oh, something in an office. She's very good with people. Maybe reception or customer service. She just needs something to get back on her feet." I paused, letting the delicious irony of the situation wash over me. My mother was asking me, the daughter she'd always dismissed, to help the daughter she'd always favored, and she didn't even realize the position of power I was in. "Actually, Mom, I might have something. I need a personal assistant. The hours are long, the work is demanding, and she'd have to relocate to California. The salary is decent, $60,000 to start, but it comes with the expectation of complete professionalism and dedication. Do you think Val would be interested?" There was silence on the other end. I could practically hear my mother calculating whether $60,000 was worth swallowing her pride. A personal assistant? What exactly would she be doing? Everything I need her to do. Scheduling, travel coordination, event planning, errands, correspondence. She'd essentially be responsible for making sure my life runs smoothly. It's a support role, but it's crucial to my business operations. Another pause. "Your business operations?" I smiled, even though she couldn't see me. "Yes, Mom. My business operations. Should I send Val the job description? Or would you prefer to discuss it with her first?" 3 days later, Val called me directly. Her voice was different, smaller, less confident than I remembered. "Cordy? It's Val. Mom said you might have a job for me." "It's Cordelia," I corrected gently. "And yes, I have a position available. Are you prepared to relocate to California immediately? The job starts Monday." "Monday? But that's only 5 days away. I need time to—" "Val, this is a business, not a family favor. If you want the job, you'll be here Monday morning at 8 a.m. sharp. If you're not ready for that level of commitment, I understand. But I'll need to look elsewhere." The desperation in her voice was unmistakable. No, I can do it. I need this job, Cordelia. I really need this." That Monday morning, I watched from my office window as a taxi pulled up to our building. Val stepped out looking around, nervously at the gleaming EcoVolt Solutions headquarters. She was still beautiful, but there was something diminished about her. The confident swagger I remembered from our childhood was gone, replaced by the uncertain movements of someone who wasn't sure of their place in the world. I'd had my assistant, my temporary assistant, prepare a comprehensive orientation packet. When Val was escorted to my office, I was sitting behind my desk, wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than she'd made in the past 6 months. "Good morning, Val. Please, have a seat." She sat down, clutching a folder that I assumed contained her resume. The irony wasn't lost on me. My sister, who had never needed to work for anything in her life, sitting across from me with a resume she'd probably thrown together the night before. "I assume you've read the job description?" She nodded. "Yes. I just want to say, Cordelia, how grateful I am for this opportunity. I know things have been complicated between our family and... I held up a hand. This is a professional relationship, Val. What happened in our family is separate from what happens in this office. You'll be working for me, not with me. You'll report to me, take direction from me, and your performance will be evaluated by me. Are we clear on that? Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe even a little hurt. She'd probably expected some kind of warm family reunion. Instead, she was getting the same treatment I'd give any employee. Yes, I understand. Good. Let me show you to your desk. I led her to a workstation just outside my office. It was nice, ergonomic chair, dual, monitors, all the equipment she'd need, but the symbolism wasn't lost on either of us. She was sitting outside my office waiting for my instructions, managing my schedule. The first few weeks were awkward for everyone. Val clearly wasn't used to being told what to do, and she definitely wasn't used to being told what to do by me. There were moments of tension, times when I'd give her an instruction and see that flash of rebellion in her eyes, quickly suppressed by the reality of her situation. But slowly, she began to adapt. She learned my schedule, my preferences, my business rhythms. She became efficient at booking my travel, managing my appointments, fielding calls. To her credit, she was trying hard to do well. The real test came 3 months into her employment. I was invited to speak at a major renewable energy conference in Las Vegas, one of the biggest events in our industry. It would be covered by national media, attended by CEOs and government officials. I needed everything to be perfect. I need you to coordinate all the travel arrangements, I told Val. Flights, hotel, ground transportation. I also need you to prepare my presentation materials, coordinate with the event organizers, and handle all the logistics. This is a big event. For the company. She nodded, taking notes. How big? There will be about 3,000 attendees. Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm is giving the keynote. I'm one of 5 featured speakers. CNN is covering it live. I watched her absorb this information. This wasn't just some random business trip. This was her sister, the sister she'd always dismissed, speaking at a nationally televised event as a recognized leader in her field. The conference was everything I'd hoped it would be and more. My presentation on the future of energy storage received a standing ovation. I was interviewed by 3 different news outlets. Major corporations approached me about partnerships. It was, without exaggeration, one of the most professionally satisfying days of my life. And through it all, Val was there in the background, making sure everything ran smoothly. She coordinated with hotel staff, managed my schedule, handled last-minute changes with quiet efficiency. She watched from the back of the auditorium as I delivered my presentation, watched as I was surrounded by reporters afterward, watched as industry leaders lined up to shake my hand. That evening, there was a VIP, reception for speakers and major sponsors. As I worked the room, discussing potential partnerships and industry trends, I caught glimpses of Val in the corner, updating my calendar on her tablet, confirming the next day's appointments. The most surreal moment came when Margaret Chen, the CEO of a major solar installation company, approached me with her assistant in tow. Cordelia, I wanted to introduce you to my assistant, Sarah. She's been invaluable in coordinating our sustainability initiatives. I don't know what I'd do without her. I smiled and gestured toward Val, who was standing nearby with my coat and briefcase. I completely understand. This is my assistant, Valentina. She's been essential in helping me manage everything. I couldn't function without her support. The word support hung in the air. Val's face remained professionally neutral, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or resignation. That night, as we flew back to California, Val was unusually quiet. Finally, as we were descending into San Francisco, she spoke. I had no idea, she said softly, about what you've built, what you've accomplished. I mean, I knew you had a job in tech, but I didn't realize. She trailed off, staring out the airplane window at the lights below. Didn't realize what? I asked. I didn't realize you were this. Important. Successful. I saw how those people treated you today. The respect. The way they listened when you spoke. She paused. Mom always made it sound like you were just getting by. I felt a mixture of vindication and sadness. Vindication because finally, someone in my family was seeing me for who I really was. Sadness because it had taken this, her working for me, her seeing my success firsthand, for her to recognize my worth. Mom has her own version of reality, I said carefully. She always has. Val was quiet for the rest of the flight. The real moment of reckoning came 6 months later. My mother called, ostensibly to check on how Val was doing, but really to probe into what I was actually doing for work. Val says you have some kind of technology company. She mentioned you spoke at some conference. I could hear the skepticism in her voice, the disbelief that I could be doing anything truly significant. Yes, Mom. I own EcoVolt Solutions. We develop battery storage systems for renewable energy applications. Own? You mean you work for them? No, Mom. I mean, I founded the company. I own it. I'm the CEO. There was a long silence. That can't be right. Val said you have employees and offices and... We have 127 employees across 6 states, Mom. Our headquarters is in Palo Alto. We went public 2 years ago. The company is valued at $2.3 billion. Another silence. Longer this time. But you never said... Why didn't you tell us? The question hung between us, loaded with years of hurt and resentment. When would I have told you, Mom? When you called to congratulate me on my achievements? When you asked about my life? When you showed any interest whatsoever in what I was doing? Your father's death was hard on all of us, and with Val's struggles. Dad died 2 years ago, and I found out from a private investigator. You never called me. You never told me he was sick. I missed my own father's funeral because no one bothered to inform me he was dying. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, but she didn't speak. And now Val works for me because she needed a job and you thought I worked for some tech company where I might be able to put in a good word for her. It never occurred to you that I might be in a position to actually offer her a job myself. Cordelia, It's okay, Mom. I understand. You spent so many years telling me I'd always be in Val's shadow that you couldn't see when I stepped into the light. The conversation ended shortly after that. But it wasn't really the end. It was the beginning of a new dynamic in our family, one where I was no longer the invisible daughter begging for scraps of attention. 2 weeks later, my mother showed up at our offices unannounced. Val called me from the front desk, her voice tight with anxiety. Cordelia, Mom's here. She wants to see you. I could have refused. I could have had security escort her out. Instead, I told Val to send her up. My mother walked into my office and stopped dead in her tracks. The space was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Silicon Valley, awards and patents displayed on the walls, a conference table where I met with industry leaders and government officials. She stood there, for a long moment, taking it all in. Then her eyes landed on a framed magazine cover, the Entrepreneur magazine feature with my photo, and the headline, "The Woman Revolutionizing Clean Energy." "This is you," she said quietly, picking up the frame. "This is really you." "Yes, Mom. This is really me." She set the magazine down and looked around the office again. "I don't understand. How did this happen? When did this happen? It happened while you were busy making sure I knew my place. While you were reminding me that I'd always be in Val's shadow. While you were celebrating her modeling photos and dismissing my little computer job." She sank into one of the chairs, across from my desk, For the first time in my memory, my mother looked small. "I was wrong," she said, so quietly I almost didn't hear her. "I was so wrong about you." I felt a complex mix of emotions: triumph, sadness, anger, and something that might have been compassion. Yes, you were wrong. But more than that, you hurt me deeply. For my entire childhood and well into my adulthood, you made me feel like I wasn't enough. Like I would never be enough. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Cordelia. I don't know how to make this right." I leaned back in my chair, in my office, in my building, in the company I'd built from nothing. "I'm not sure you can make it right, Mom, but you can start by acknowledging what actually happened. Not some revised version where you were always supportive, but the truth. You favored Val. You dismissed me. You made me feel invisible in my own family." She nodded, still crying. I did all of those things. And now Val works for me. She's my employee. She takes my direction, manages my schedule, supports my work. The daughter you said would always be in her sister's shadow is now the one casting the shadow. My mother looked up at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her eyes when she looked at me. Respect. "What you've built here," she said, gesturing around the office. "It's incredible. You're incredible. I see that now." I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the beginning of peace. "I know I am, Mom. I've always known I am. The difference is, now, you know it too." That evening, I found Val still at her desk, even though it was well past 6 o'clock. She was organizing files, preparing for the next day's meetings. "You don't have to stay late every night," I told her. "The work will be here tomorrow." She looked up at me, and I saw something different in her expression. Not the resentment or discomfort I'd grown accustomed to, but something like understanding. "I know. I want to do well. This job, what you've built here, it's important. And I'm grateful to be part of it, even in a small way." It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was acknowledgement. Recognition that our roles had changed, that the family dynamic we'd grown up with was no longer reality. "You are doing well," I said. "You've become an excellent assistant." She smiled. A real smile, not the performative ones I remembered from our childhood. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." As I walked to my car that night, I reflected on how far we'd all come. I wasn't the invisible daughter anymore, desperately seeking approval from a mother who couldn't see my worth. Val wasn't the entitled golden child, expecting the world to revolve around her charm and looks. And my mother was learning to see both of her daughters for who we really were. The revenge I'd imagined in those dark moments after her birthday party had been so much sweeter than I'd ever dreamed. I hadn't destroyed Val or publicly humiliated my mother. Instead, I'd built something so undeniably successful, so impressive, that they had no choice but to see me clearly. 6 months ago, I received an invitation that felt like the ultimate validation. The president was hosting a summit on climate innovation at the White House, and I was invited as one of 12 business leaders to participate in discussions about America's clean energy future. The invitation was addressed to Cordelia Martinez, CEO and founder, EcoVolt Solutions. I stared at it for a long time, thinking about the 12-year-old girl who'd stood in her kitchen with a solar panel prototype, desperate for her mother's attention. Val helped coordinate the travel arrangements, just as she'd done for hundreds of other business trips. But this time, as she handed me my boarding pass and briefing materials, she said something that took me by surprise. "I'm proud of you, for all of this. I know I never said it before, but I should have. I'm proud to be your sister. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the rival who'd overshadowed my childhood, but a woman who'd learned humility the hard way and was trying to rebuild her life with dignity. Thank you, Val. That means more than you know. The White House summit was everything I dreamed it would be. I sat at a table with the President of the United States, discussing policies that could reshape America's energy future. My ideas were listened to, respected, implemented into preliminary policy recommendations. As I sat in the Roosevelt Room, surrounded by some of the most powerful people in the country, I thought about my mother's words. You'll always be in your sister's shadow. I smiled to myself. Turns out, Mom, there's a lot of light outside of your shadow. When I returned from Washington, there was a surprise waiting for me. My mother had flown out to California, the first time she'd ever visited me in the 15 years I'd lived there. She was waiting in our office lobby with flowers and a card. When she saw me, she stood up, and I could see she was nervous. I wanted to congratulate you properly, she said. On the White House, on everything. I saw the news coverage. I saw the president mention your company by name. I'm proud of you. Cordelia. I should have said that a long time ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of you. It wasn't enough to erase decades of hurt. It couldn't give me back the childhood I'd wanted, the mother I'd needed. But it was something. It was acknowledgement. It was the beginning of a relationship based on who I actually was, not who she'd decided I should be. Today, EcoVolt Solutions is one of the fastest growing companies in America. We've created over 300 jobs. Our technology is used in installations across the globe, and we're working on innovations that could make renewable energy accessible to everyone. Val still works as my assistant, and she's good at it. She's professional, efficient, and has developed a genuine understanding of our business. More importantly, she's learned to find satisfaction in supporting something bigger than herself. My mother and I talk regularly now. Our relationship will never be what it could have been if she'd seen my worth from the beginning, but it's honest. She knows who I am, what I've accomplished, and she no longer takes credit for any of it or tries to diminish it. But the most important thing, the thing that makes all of this truly meaningful, is that I no longer need their validation. I built this company, this life, this success for me, not to prove them wrong, not to show them what they'd missed, but because I knew I was capable of something extraordinary. The little girl who stood in the kitchen with her solar panel prototype grew up to revolutionize an industry. The daughter who was told she'd always live in her sister's shadow created her own light, bright enough to illuminate the world. And that, everyone, is my story. It was a wild ride, but I wouldn't change how it ended. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? I'm really curious to know, so tell me down in the comments below. Have you ever experienced anything remotely similar, or had a moment where you just knew you had to take a stand? I'd love to read your experiences if you're comfortable sharing. If you found this story satisfying and you're hungry for more, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you won't miss out on the next one. Thanks for listening.